few housekeeping items that we want to go over before we jump in. So we will be taking questions on the chat today. So if you're not familiar with the chat, you should have a bar at the bottom or the top of your screen that has a chat icon. And when you click on that, you'll have the opportunity to share messages with everyone or with one of the presenters specifically. Also, if you're on a mobile device, you'll have 3 dots in your top right corner. If you click on that, it will drop down the chat option as well. So you can ask questions throughout the presentation via chat, and we'll go back and pick those up at the appropriate times. You can also share a little bit of information or respond when we ask you questions. So Jonathan, let's get started. Let's jump to the next slide. So if you are here because you are thinking about starting a business, you are in the right place. We're going to be going over some basic questions that you may have about business structure, and then we're going to be talking about an outline for a business plan, or if you're not thinking about doing a business plan, a strategic plan. So my name is Dana Hugel. I am the Center Director here at Eastern Oklahoma State College for the Oklahoma Small Business Development Center. My colleague, Jonathan Nguyen, is a business development specialist. He's housed at the Eastern Oklahoma State College in McAlester, Oklahoma. And then we're joined by Cindy Ruminer and Russ Gray, who are out of our Oklahoma Small Business Development Center state office at Southeastern Oklahoma State in Durant. So we've already gone over some webinar tips. I do want to remind you that we can still see you if your camera is on, so be aware of that. If you're doing something that might be distracting to other participants or to our presenters, please turn your camera off. Otherwise, if you're joining us and you're in your office or something like that, we encourage you to keep your cameras on. The webinar is being recorded, but the webinar itself will not be distributed. You will get all of the presentation slides as well as some additional information about business startup. So let me introduce you just a little bit to the Oklahoma Small Business Development Center, because many of you may not be that familiar with who we are or what we do. So we do provide confidential, high quality, no cost, which is key for most entrepreneurs, no cost entrepreneurial and small business support to business owners who are growing businesses, starting businesses, and we help with new businesses all the way through to businesses that are looking at an exit strategy. So if you're thinking about starting a business, that's really exciting, and we're glad that you're here to help put that foundation in place as you get your business started. So we are located across the state of Oklahoma. We serve all 77 counties. We've been in Oklahoma for almost 40 years. And our business advisors are located at colleges, universities, career techs, economic development entities, chambers of commerce, and Main Street programs. You see that there are some areas where we don't have offices. We sometimes travel, but through Zoom and phone, we do provide services to all 77 counties. So we are funded through kind of a match. So the United States Small Business Administration provides kind of our seed money. They're the federal funding entity, and then they require a dollar-for-dollar match. So those entities that I mentioned earlier, colleges, universities, career techs, chambers of commerce, banks, those types of entities provide additional partnerships to enable this service to be offered in the state of Oklahoma. So each one of our business advisors, and there are almost 40 of us across the state of Oklahoma, each one of us is a business generalist, which means that we are able to work with any industry that walks through our door, as long as it's an industry that's federally recognized. So we can work in really any industry, but then each one of us has specific areas of expertise. So we work as a team. We always like to say, anytime you get one of us, you get all of us. You can see here on the screen some of the areas of expertise, but our expertise is actually much broader than that at this point. So I just wanted to let you know that. A couple that I would like to touch on, because I know entrepreneurs know other entrepreneurs, and so I want to make sure that you're aware of these services. We have an international trade team, and I know a lot of you are just starting businesses, and you may not, the thought of international trade may be overwhelming, but we do have a team that's available to help explore those options when you get to that point. Or if you know other small business owners who are already at that point, that is a team that they may want to meet with and decide whether exporting is good for them. Also, if you're having any issues regarding importing for your business, our international trade team can often help with that. We also have a tech commercialization team. And a lot of times when I say tech commercialization, people automatically think about drones and apps and things like that. But really, tech commercialization is appropriate for anyone who has an innovation. So if you've invented something, or if you have significantly modified something that to make your life easier or to make someone else's life or job easier, that may be a product that you want to talk with about the tech commercialization team, and they can help give you information about patents and about opportunities to commercialize your product. So I just want to make sure that you know about that. So we've already gone over some introductions. I do want to let you know just a couple of other things. I told you that all of our business advising is at no cost to you. It's all confidential. So if you want to be able to work with an advisor one-on-one, feel free to drop us a message in chat. That be helpful for us so that we can follow up with you in a timely manner. Also, I want to let you know that Cindy will be launching a short poll at the end of our presentation today so that we can get a little bit of feedback from you as we plan future presentations. So I do have a chat message from someone who says they can't hear anyone. So Cindy, if you could address that and make sure that they might need to log off and log on. Also, as you drop your chat questions in, if everybody, maybe if you have a business idea, you're already started your business, if you'll just let us know what industry you're in, that's helpful, and we'll try to tailor some of our responses for your specific industry. So if you want to drop those in the chat, that's great. So I want to start out today talking about organizational structure for small business. This is an area that a lot of people get a little bit overwhelmed as we think about this, and so we want to make sure that we go over organizational structure and clear up some myths about organizational structure. So let's jump in, Jonathan. So there are a number of ways that you can organize your business structure. One of the common ways we see is businesses that are set up as a sole proprietor. So let's talk a little bit about what a sole proprietor is. A sole proprietor is a single owner. You don't have to file with the Secretary of State, but you can file a trade name or a doing business as or DBA name with the Secretary of State if you're a sole proprietor to protect your business name. A lot of times sole proprietors use their Social Security number. However, we always recommend that they get an EIN rather than use their Social Security number if you're not already in business. The thing that I think it's important to realize for a sole proprietor, you have unlimited liability. That means if I were to sue you for whatever reason, your business assets are at risk in that suit, but also your personal assets are at risk. So your home, your vehicle, those types of things can be at risk as well because you have unlimited liability. As a sole proprietor, you and the business are basically one and the same. So I like people to be aware of that. Some of you are going to be in entities, it looks like, that are very low chance of litigation, but some of you, esthetician, contracting, some of you are going to be in some areas that are potentially ripe with litigation. So you want to be aware of that liability issue. So let's go on and talk a little bit about the next type. So many of our small businesses in Oklahoma function as limited liability companies or LLCs, and many of you may be familiar with this. You can set up an LLC by filing with the Oklahoma Secretary of State. This does limit your liability. So this is a business entity that is separate from your personal entity. So you can have a single member LLC, you can have a multi-member LLC. You can have as many members in your LLC as you want. So an LLC, you don't call them owners, you call them members. So there's just a little bit of language difference there. So A limited liability company is something that is organized to limit your liability, exactly what it says in the name. It is not actually a recognized entity by the IRS. So the IRS has chosen to give you the opportunity to decide as an LLC if you would like to be taxed as a sole proprietor or partnership, or if you would like to be taxed as a S corporation. So you have you have a choice there. There are a couple of things that limit your liability. So you want to make sure you're set up properly with the Secretary of State. You also want to make sure you have an operating agreement. Many times we see as advisors, people set up their limited liability company and they get their articles of incorporation from the Secretary of State, but they don't actually go on to that next step and set up their operating agreement. So your operating agreement is a document that just talks about who can incur debt for the business, what happens to the business if something happens to one of the members, those types of things. It's a governing document. So we've got some templates that we're happy to share with you. You can work with an attorney or an accountant many times to set up an LLC if you need that operating agreement piece. So let's go on and talk about a partnership a little bit, because I think this is where we get a lot of confusion. So a partnership is two or more people or entities that are in business together. There's no limit, once again, to the number of partners. Many times we see people set up a general partnership. So if Jonathan and I are going to go into business together and we decide not to set up an LLC and we're just going to go into business as a partnership, that's a general partnership. We're equally liable for the entire business. When I say we're equally liable, both of us individually is 100% liable for the company. So this one also has unlimited liability, and it also can put your personal assets at risk. You can set up a limited partnership that would be filed with the Secretary of State, and you have to define the limits of each partner. I would suggest if you're going to set up a limited partnership that you would work with an attorney to do that. So another type of entity is a C corporation. C corporations have all the stockholders have limited liability. You definitely want to make sure you file with the Secretary of State. You have to make sure that you're taking minutes. There's a tax differentiation here. This is the level where you're taxed at a corporate level and on your dividends. So you can do distributions, and you can do that via payroll or by dividends. If you think at some point your company might be publicly traded, then you definitely want to set it up as a C corporation from the start. So you make transfers with a C corporation through stock sales. So it's a little bit different entity than an LLC or a sole proprietor or a partnership. So let's jump onto that summary slide. A little more about S corporations. And really, once again, I suggest that you work with an attorney if you're setting up an S corporation, because you have to do that IRS election and you want to make sure that your shares are handled properly. So while we talk about, this is just kind of summarizes all of those different entity types. But one thing that I want to point out, there's a common myth out there that I'm going to open my business as a sole proprietor and then it's going to grow to an LLC and then it's going to grow to a corporation. That is not the case. And so I want to make that very, very clear right now. Whatever type of entity you start out with is generally the type of entity you keep throughout the life of the business. Now, that being said, if you currently have a sole proprietor or a partnership and you're in an industry that you feel like you may be taking on more personal liability than you want, now that you have an understanding of sole proprietor and partnership, and you want to set up an LLC, you can still do that. You just have a few more steps to go through. But generally, you want to, if you haven't yet started your business or haven't yet decided on an organizational structure, we would encourage you to consider an organizational structure that limits your liability, but selecting an organizational structure that's going to be with that company and grow with that company from now moving forward. That way, when you're assigned your EIN for that company, that EIN stays with the company moving forward. That's important to build up kind of the history of the company and the stability of the company. If you change your entity or organization type, it is as if you've started the business over. So I want to be clear about that. We can answer specific questions that you have about that. Or if it's something that's extremely specific, then we may have you work individually with an advisor. So let's go on and jump into some more fun tax stuff, Jonathan. So how do you register? You want to make sure that you register. Once again, the first step is to register with the Oklahoma Secretary of State. That information was on the previous slide. Once again, you'll get a copy of all these slides, so you don't have to write down the addresses furiously. But then you want to register with the Oklahoma Tax Commission. If you are going to be providing a good, so if I can walk into your store or if I can go on your website and order something, then you're going to need to register with the Oklahoma Tax Commission. If you're providing a service, you may not need to register, but there are certain services in the state of Oklahoma that are subject to sales tax. So if you are in any form of entertainment, so if you are horseback riding, paintball guns, skate rentals, those kinds of things, you do still need to register with the Oklahoma Tax Commission. If you have a short-term vacation rental, if you're renting party wear, all of those are things that are taxable. So you want to register with the Oklahoma Tax Commission. If you're providing a service and you're going to have employees, you're going to want to register with the Oklahoma Tax Commission. If you are in doubt at all, our suggestion would be that you register with the Tax Commission and then let them tell you whether or not you needed to. They can always let you know, hey, we don't need you to register. So there are some resources available through the Oklahoma Department of Commerce. So there's a website here. That's just some general resources and information as well. So there are some taxes and licenses that are required depending on your specific industry. I know we've got some that are in construction. So there's information on starting construction business on that Department of Commerce site. I haven't seen any that would need tire or anything like that. We may have some that need information about lodging and sales tax, and some that need alcohol, tobacco, and cigarette tax information. So all of that is available on the Oklahoma Tax Commission website, and we're going to talk about that more as we go. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So let's talk specifically about sales tax, use tax, and lodging tax. So sales tax is taxed on tangible goods. So once again, if I can walk in and buy something and walk out with it, or if I can order online and have it shipped to me, then it's subject to sales tax. So you can figure out what your sales tax is by knowing that the state rate is 4.5%. Then you're going to have county sales tax and city sales tax. So there is a rate locator on the Oklahoma Tax Commission site, so you don't have to figure that out yourself. It can change quarterly. So it's important for you to check that regularly. A lot of people don't realize it. You remit your sales tax. I would recommend for most of my businesses, they remit their sales tax monthly because we want to make sure that we're managing our cash flow well. For some industries, you can do it quarterly, but for cash flow management, sometimes it's easier to do that monthly. So when you're initially issued your permit, it's issued on a 6-month trial basis, and then it's renewed every 3 years. Costs $20 to set up your sales tax account. And you'll remit all of your sales tax online through the OKTAP website. So use tax are taxes that are paid on items that are purchased out of state, and they're not for resale. So I live close to the Arkansas state line. So many times I work with businesses that go to Fort Smith, Arkansas and purchase a piece of equipment to use in their business. Maybe they're going over there and they're purchasing scaffolding to bring back and use in their business. They would pay sales tax when they purchase their scaffolding in Fort Smith. However, the sales tax rate in Fort Smith is different than the sales tax rate here in Wilburton. So if I pay less tax in Fort Smith than I pay in Wilburton, then I owe the state of Oklahoma the difference, right? If I pay more in Fort Smith than I pay in Wilburton, then I need to keep a track of my receipt. Don't worry, this state is not going to refund you the difference. They just expect you to pay the difference if you paid less. So I want you to also realize if you purchase items online to be used in your business, this is the case as well. So you'll want to check and see if those online vendors that you're purchasing equipment from, if they're charging sales tax or not. It's important to know that. But this is basically on items that are used in the business, but they're not for resale. So that's an important differentiation. If they're going to be used for resale, then you would use your sales tax permit depending on the specific vendor. If you are in the short-term vacation rental business, then, or if you're in the hospitality industry, if you have hotels, motels, then you're going to also want to consider what lodging tax applies to you in your county or your city. So certain counties and cities in the state of Oklahoma have lodging tax that helps drive tourism and other projects. And so you want to be aware. There's a note you can see here on the slide that Airbnb collects and remits if you set that up properly. VRBO does not. An additional statement about that, I talked with the Oklahoma Tax Commission this week, and even if you're an Airbnb and Airbnb collects and remits the sales tax for you, you still have to register with the Oklahoma Tax Commission and let them know that somebody else will be remitting for you. So an advisor can work with you one-on-one on specifically how to do that, but that is a little bit of a shift, so we want you to be aware of that. Okay, so let's jump on to the next page. So I wanted you to have an idea of what that sales and use tax rate locator looks like. So I also want you to be aware of a couple of things, and this is a lot of information, I know that. So if you need to work with one of our advisors and ask these questions again, feel free. You can also attend our trainings as many times as you would like. So when you're looking at sales and use tax, some common questions that we're asked about. If I'm selling out of a storefront in Wilburton, Oklahoma, I'm going to charge the sales tax rate for Wilburton, Oklahoma. If I am a mobile business, so let's say I have a food truck or a pop-up shop and I go to fairs or art shows or food events in towns other than Wilburton, I want to be aware of what the sales tax rate is for that location, because your sales tax is based on the location where you're doing business. So that's important to remember. So this sales tax rate locator becomes very useful in that case. Now, if you're working with an event, you may have an event organizer that helps you navigate some of these things. So you may want to check in on that. But I just want you to be aware that if you are physically going to a location, you'll be charging the sales tax for that location. If you are doing internet sales and you are shipping to another location, the sales tax is based on where the person purchasing the good lives. So that also becomes kind of an issue. Some of your point of sale, your POS systems will track and manage that for you, but be aware of that. The Oklahoma Tax Commission also has great information on the website about for you as a resource if you're going to be selling out of state. If you do a lot of online sales and you're selling out of state, certain states have thresholds where you're not required to remit sales tax in that state until you hit that specific dollar threshold. But I think it's important for you to be aware of what the threshold is for the states where you're selling a lot of goods into. If you travel to another state to work, so once again, I'm near Fort Smith, Arkansas. If I take my pop-up business and I go set up at a festival in Fort Smith, Arkansas, I am then subject to sales tax for Fort Smith, Arkansas, but I'm also subject to income tax for Arkansas. So I want you to be aware of those things as well. Once again, I know we've got a lot of really diverse industries that are joining us today. So if you have very specific questions, we'll be happy to follow up with you one-on-one. So let's jump to the next slide, Jonathan. So how many of you, go ahead and drop me a quick number. If you, yes, just a Y or an N, if you're going to hire employees, and if it's a Y, how many do you think you're going to be hiring? So this is an issue that's very important to think about. If you're going to be hiring employees, even if you're a sole proprietor, we definitely recommend that you get your EIN, or some people refer to it as your FEIN number. So your Federal Employer Identification Number. You need to get that. You'll get that at irs.gov. I'm going to say that again. You get that at irs.gov. You can get that number regardless of whether you're hiring employees or not. Many banks now require an EIN or an FEIN for you to set up your business bank account. And we're going to talk more about business bank accounts. Don't worry, I'm not skimming over that, but I want you to know there are multiple reasons you might get an EIN number. So we recommend that you get that number, especially if you're going to have employees, but I really recommend it for safety purposes that you get it anytime you're going to go into business. But you're going to get it at irs.gov. And I say that multiple times because if you go to irs.anything else, they may charge you for services, and it is free to get your EIN number. So I'm going to repeat that again. It is free to get your EIN number. And I say that because I hear stories every day where business owners have been charged $1,500 to get their FEIN number, when I know that it doesn't cost them anything. Now, if you're working with an attorney or an accountant to set up your business and they're doing a package of services for you, then that's different. You're probably paying them to set you up with the Secretary of State, with the Oklahoma Tax Commission, to get all of your documents in a kind of in order, and that's fine. I just want you to be aware that this specific thing doesn't cost you anything. So if you're hiring employees, you want to be aware of what your payroll tax liabilities are. You can see those here. Also, workman's compensation insurance. You're required to have work comp insurance on your employees. So a lot of times I'm asked the question, well, what if I am hiring only family members, right? There are still some very specific requirements if you're getting waivers from your family members, but I would also want to talk to you about why. Why are you doing that? So you have a number of resources for workman's comp insurance. You can work with your insurance provider and they can probably give you some quotes. And then CompSource Oklahoma is kind of the largest work comp insurance provider in the state of Oklahoma. So you are required to hold some employee records, and you need to have these in a place that can be locked. That's important. I would keep these a little bit separate from some of your other employee records. So you need to make sure that you have a W-4 form. You also need to realize that there is an updated Oklahoma W-4 form as well. So there are 2 W-4 forms that you'll need for all of your employees. Also, as an employer, you want to be aware that an employee has the right to change their W-4 form every day if they want to. So just be aware of that. You also want to make sure that you have an I-9 form on file for every employee. If you're ever audited, it's a very steep penalty for not having an I-9 form for all of your employees. So you also want to report to the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission anytime you hire a new employee. Also, just so that you know, as a potential employer, the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission offers a lot of resources for business owners. So I would encourage you to check out that site, even if you think you're not quite ready for employees, so that you know what your resources are available. They also have some programs available that your SBDC advisor can work with you on, or the Employment Security Commission can work with you directly on to help you, depending on the numbers of employees, where they're located, some things like that, that may help offset some of your employment costs. So let's go on to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between an employee and an independent contractor. This is a very common question that we're asked about. If I do business with you and I provide a service to you, but I also provide the same service to a number of other employers, then I may be an independent contractor. Okay, so if I provide all of my own tools and equipment, I may be an independent contractor. If you as the employer have the right to control or direct the result of the work, and you tell me what time to show up and you provide all of the tools and the equipment to do the job, then I'm probably an employee. If you tell me what you want done and you give me a deadline, but you don't tell me what time I can work, you don't provide any of my tools, then I'm probably an independent contractor. This is important because independent contractors do not pay, you as the employer don't pay payroll taxes for independent contractors. You do have them complete a W-9, and at the end of the year, if you pay them more than $600, you're going to provide a 1099 to them so that they can file their taxes. You can require proof of insurance for an independent contractor. You can require them to be bonded and insured. You have some rights there. I would always suggest, if you're working independent contractors, that you have an independent or a contractor agreement in place, so that you know and have laid out what type of work they're doing, what the deadlines are, what the expectations are, and that they're working as a contractor. That helps keep things very clear. Recently, well, prior to COVID and through COVID, we've seen a lot of audits about whether or not people were employees or independent contractors. So we want you to be aware of the difference. Let's go ahead and jump to the next slide. So a lot of this goes into bookkeeping and record keeping. So you may or may not realize that you're required by law, if you set up a business in the state of Oklahoma, you are required to keep records of your business transactions. But as a business advisor, I would always recommend that you keep good records, because that's a management tool. It helps you make business decisions. It helps you prepare. It helps you find trends. So that's going to be very important. Here's what I would say, because I get asked on the regular about what system to use or what software to use. It really doesn't matter. And I know that that's not always the answer that some of my businesses want me to say. They want me to give them a definite answer. But I want you to use a method of bookkeeping that is going to work for you. So if you love QuickBooks, use QuickBooks. If you like to use Excel spreadsheets, use Excel spreadsheets. If you want to use a hybrid of your POS system and an Excel spreadsheet, you do that. I have businesses that do all of those things. I have businesses that keep paper ledgers. I'm fine with that, as long as it's a bookkeeping method that you will use consistently, because it's not a management tool if you aren't able to see that data, right? So if you're really unsure or don't really know for your industry what's common, we're happy to help you about that. But I just want you to be aware that it is required by law that you keep records, but really it's up to you as an individual business owner how you keep those records. So our suggestions are that you set up your business bank account. So I told you I was going to talk to you about that a little bit. You're going to need several items in order to set up a business bank account. You're going to need to have your organizational structure decided upon. If you're setting up an LLC or a corporation, you're going to need to have already registered with the Secretary of State, because the bank is going to want your articles of organization or your articles of incorporation. You're also going to want your operating agreement or your corporate bylaws in place. That's important. You're going to want to go ahead and get your FEIN number from irs.gov. So when you walk into the bank, you'll have all of those documents together, and then they're also going to ask for the driver's license for anybody who's going to be on the account, right? They're going to want that information as well. So that's what you'll need to open your bank account. But in order for you to be protected from a liability standpoint, you want to make sure that you're keeping all of your business transactions running through your business bank account and all your personal transactions running through your personal bank account. So you don't want to commingle those. You don't want to pierce what you've probably heard people say, pierce the corporate veil. You don't want to commingle any of those funds. You want to make sure that you keep them very clear and very separate. If you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, I'm kind of in business, I've been doing a hobby, and now I want to transition it into a business and I haven't done this, it's okay. We can help you figure out what are the steps to get it all separated. But I just want you to be aware of starting. If you do that from the start, it's much cleaner. So you want to make sure that your checking account balances each month. You want to make sure that you keep your statements and receipts for 7 years. With online banking, that can be really easy to do, but you want to make sure that you have that available to you for 7 years. You try, I know never is a strong word, but you want to try not to write checks to cash. You want to make sure that you have receipts and information to support if you do have to write a check to cash. So daily accounting and recording, you want to make sure that you're closing out your days. You want to make sure that your days balance back, and that what you're depositing matches what you're cashing out in your register, and some things like that. If you have incidental expenses, you want to make sure that you account for those. We recommend that you create an income and expense categories. We'll just go with that. Sorry. Categories for each type of expense you have. So you may lump some of those together, right? If you're building a document for tracking purposes, you may want to keep up with your electric, your gas, your water, your trash all separately, or you may decide that it's better for you to lump those as utilities. That's up to you and what trends you want to be able to see in management for your business. But we advise you to set up those categories and then track those regularly. If you are using a profit and loss statement, then those are going to be set up for you if in some softwares. But if you're building an Excel spreadsheet or you're using a paper ledger, you're going to want to set those up yourself. So one thing I would ask you to consider, if the thought of filing taxes, the thought of bookkeeping, if you start to have a bit of an anxiety attack when I start to talk about those types of things, then you may want to interview some bookkeepers. A lot of times people say, oh, I'm too small. I'm a single person business, and I'm too small to have a bookkeeper. I can't afford it. And I would recommend that if you think that that might be something you're interested in at all, you make an appointment and you really interview several bookkeepers or tax professionals so that you can see what they would charge you for different services. Many times they offer a menu of services for small businesses that are very affordable. So that being said, you also want to make sure you understand what your filing requirements are for your taxes and if you should make estimated tax payments. I work with business owners all the time who tell me, well, I just pay my taxes once a year. Well, if that is the only income they have, then they're likely paying some penalties, because if they owe taxes, they would be better off paying that quarterly and estimating those taxes, and then at the end of the year making the adjustments. So if they have a job outside, then you can make an adjustment on your W-4 and withhold more taxes to make that come out better in the end. But I want to kind of lay that out for you. Once again, we can talk more about your specific cases, or you can drop those questions in the chat and I'll try to get back to you. I see that somebody had mentioned with the workman's comp that they do have family members working for them. So they may want to consider those waivers for workman's comp if they're all family members. There is a number threshold. You can only work so many family members under waivers without having to get workman's comp. So that's important to know as well. So I always want you to remember, you're not alone in this. There are wonderful resources. This is one website. We work with the tax commission and we work through these issues all the time as small business advisors. So we're happy to help you as well. I would also encourage you, if you currently have a bookkeeper or an accountant, to work with them and make sure that you're making the best choices for your business. One thing I would say, if you're working with a tax professional or an accountant or even an attorney, at the end of the day, you as the business owner are the person that's liable for the tax liabilities. So you want to make sure that you're asking the right types of questions. So sometimes people come to us and they schedule an appointment just so we can help them outline how to interview a bookkeeper or what questions should I be asking my tax professional. So we're available for that as well. So are there other questions? I don't see any additional questions coming in on our chat, but I may have missed some. If there are any questions that I haven't addressed, go ahead and drop those in. I know that's a lot of information I threw at you in a short amount of time. But as we go, if you come up with additional questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. If you want to work with an individual advisor, we're happy to assign you one that we think is either in your area of expertise or maybe geographically close to you, so that you can we can help get you tied in with an advisor to help you. Liability insurance. So I would always recommend that you work with your insurance agent. And here's what I would say. And some people, when I say this, it causes a little bit of stress, and that's okay. I also recommend that you interview 3 to 5 insurance agents and you talk with them, even if you're going to stay with your insurance agent that you have a long-standing relationship with. I think it's important for you to interview some insurance agents. It helps you understand coverages better. Also, different insurance agents carry different types of products, so you can do some rate shopping as well. It depends on your business, what type of liability insurance requirements you're probably going to have. It also depends whether or not you're going to be doing some government contracting and things like that. There are certain thresholds you're required to have in certain industries. So I think it's important that you shop that liability insurance. You may also need some additional types of insurance, and we'll talk about that as we go along. I did get a question, do we need work comp insurance for part-time employees? You sure do. Everybody needs to be covered by work comp insurance. Now, the fact that they're part-time will change your rate for those employees. And you also want to make sure you have a job description that describes what the employee actually does, because that can impact your rate as well. Sometimes we work with businesses and they have kind of a blanket job description for that's everyone's job description. And if you maybe you have someone that's answering phones and doing clerical type work, and their category is actually lower, and you would pay less for them if their job description explained more specifically what they do. So I would, for workman's comp, yes, all of your employees need workman's comp coverage, but the hours that they work and the type of job they do really impacts what that rate looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Jonathan to jump us into talking more about a business plan.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. You're probably tired of talking. There's a lot to take in. So I'm going to kind of take over the business plan part. We're going to walk through current business concepts, the business planning and answers, and then kind of let you think about how you evaluate your business idea, and your business plan, and then maybe you can start thinking about that roadmap to developing that business plan. So question 1, who are all the people involved in my business? So as you're thinking about the business that you're creating, you of course you have yourself, but who else is helping you? Is there a partner? Are you buying an existing business? Can that owner/manager help you get that business up and running? Is it an okay SBDC advisor? Is that someone that's in your corner? So those are the type of people you want to rely on and lean on to help get your business plan and your business up and going. So think about that. And another part of that too is it might be that if you're opening a restaurant, you might want to hire a top tier chef. That's someone that's involved in your business to help get those recipes or your menu on the right track to get your business going where you need to go. Question 2, what do you do? So a lot of times as entrepreneurs, I want to do business A, but in business A, I've got sub business X, Y, Z. And so you really want to kind of hone in on that one thing what is your business about? Yes, you are going to have some other revenue streams, but really what's your main revenue stream? Let's get that tackled. Let's get that focused on and build that business plan around that. And then let's figure out what those other added streams are to help get this business even further down the road. Question 3, who is your customer? So a lot of times, people come up with a business idea and think, okay, I'm going to sell this widget. Well, that widget may only target a certain demographic in maybe another state or another country, or a certain age limit that maybe in your area that age population isn't there. So you need to think about who are you selling to. if you're going to be selling to a younger generation, well, then you need to focus on the younger generation and not be so broad sometimes. We need to really figure out who our customer is. What is our customer's buying base, their buying power, their demographics? What are their disposable income? Are you overpriced with your product, or are you underpriced? So you need to look at what areas, where Dana and I live, we're not a big metro as Oklahoma City or a North Texas, so we can't really price our products for those type of areas. So you would want to price it for your demographic. So that's one thing you want to think about is who are you selling to? Question 4, why would they buy what you sell from you? So is this that your story or your company or your product's a likable product? You're a likable person. That's one thing you want to think about is why would they come through the door, or why would they come online to buy my product? Once again, that goes back to know your customer and know how to sell to them. A lot of times people might, instead of buying online, they might drive to town because they like the person that is running that operation or that business, and they may pay a few extra dollars just because of that person that's there to help them, because they are informative. They do have the product they want and can probably get other products. Sometimes we like that interaction with the business versus just pushing an order online and being done with it. So think about why someone would come in and buy that product from you. Question 5, how are you going to do what you do? So how are you going to get this product? Are you manufacturing a product? So do you need a space to manufacture it? Or are you just a retail store? So you just need a storefront. How are you going to build that storefront out? How are you going to do all this purchasing and get that product and fill your store? And then how are you going to get that product out to the public? So you want to think about all those different aspects of how are you going to get you to do what you're going to do. Because sometimes it might be that you need just a 2,000 square foot building, or you may need a 20,000 square foot building. So you really want to think about all those aspects of that business plan. How are you going to get the word out? So we all live in a social media driven era, and that's kind of overtaken all news just about. So, you can still do a newspaper ad. There's still people that read newspapers. I'm one of them, but there is a lot of the population that doesn't. So you really need to have an online presence, whether that's through a website, Google My Business, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media. A lot of people, that's how they connect with the public and to get their product out, and just doing the social media side of things and learning. And that's what, if you get paired with a business advisor, we can help you with some of your social media and getting some of those target advertisements out to better your business. Who are your top 3 competitors? This is where, when we put together a business plan, a bank kind of wants to know what's your market analysis? What's it look like in your area? How do you compare to your 3 competitors? And we can kind of pull some of that data as SBDC advisors, and we can kind of look at some of what not so much your top 3 competitors, but what are your competitors doing in that market, and what is the money that they are earning? Kind of get an idea of what cash flows look like. So you do want to know if you're a boutique, what are your products selling versus the boutique down the road? Are you guys just selling the same thing for the same price? You really want to look at how you're going to differentiate yourself and your business from the other business in your town or the next town over.
Jonathan, I would jump in and just also remind you that you as a business owner may have friendly competitors, right? So you may want to refer, if you're a boutique and you carry one type of item and the boutique down the street carries another, I love that example. If I walk into your store and I'm looking for something very specific, I have dollars to spend, right? And our goal as business owners really ought to be trying to get, of course, we want them to spend their dollars with us, but trying to help our customer realize they can get everything they need right here locally, wherever locally is. If it's a metro area, they can get it right here in the neighborhood. But if you're a rural area, they can get it right here in town. They don't need to go to the next town over, and they don't need to go necessarily online. So if I walk in and I need something specific and you don't have it, if you refer me to the boutique down the street and I purchase it, I start to think I can get everything I need right here, right? Because we like generalizations, our brains like generalizations. So I can get everything I need right here. And so I'm more likely to come back into your store because I had a good experience. Even though I didn't get anything from you today, doesn't mean that I won't come in and buy something the next time. So I think you have friendly competition, and then you have just like strong competition. I also think understanding what your competitor's lane is, and I dropped some information over in the chat about lanes. So is your competitor selling strictly on price? Are they selling on quality? Are they selling on customer service, or some combination thereof? So understanding what their lane is and whether or not you want to compete in the same lane or you want to differentiate in one of those ways, I think is important too. So just wanted to jump in and kind of share those thoughts with you.
Thanks, Dana. So what could go wrong, as Dana talked about in the business structure side of things, and then talking about LLCs and protecting yourself, that's something you want to think about as a business is, okay, if I open this business, am I protected if I have a fire? Am I protected if there's a flood? Am I protected if someone slips, trips, and falls at my location and hurts themselves? So that's where you want to have those insurances in place. You want to have that LLC in place or something of that nature to help protect your personal assets. You also want to think, what happens if I'm out of work, I hurt myself, and I can't work for 6 months? Who's gonna run this business for me? How is it going to operate? So when you're thinking about your business plan, you want to think of all these different things that could happen to keep this business going. And Dana always has a good story on this one too, that she had a business that she helped get open, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe a few days before it opened, they built a new building, a tornado came through and just wiped it out. But Dana had them get insurance maybe a week prior, a couple of weeks prior, and so they had insurance, and yes, it slowed them down opening date a little bit, but they didn't skip a beat, had a new building up, and they were ready to go. So those are things that you want to check all those boxes and alleviate any mitigation that you've got that could be risk, and so you can keep operating. What are your top 3 goals for the next 6 months? And I always say this, and I tell other businesses, they don't have to be huge, wildly goals. And it does, even when we get into the next question, they don't have to be huge, baby steps. Let's get this open. Your top 3 goals for the next 6 months might just be completing a business plan. Maybe that's it. Or, hey, let's get to the bank. Or maybe we're past that. We've got a business plan. We've got financials. The bank's given us the okay. Maybe it's just pulling the trigger on construction or purchasing your product. Think about in the next 6 months, what are those 3 big to-dos that you need to get done and to get this thing off the ground? Number 10, what will success look like in a year and in 3 years? And once again, that doesn't need to be, I made $1 million in 3 years. I hope it is, but maybe it's, hey, my business is cash flowing. I'm paying myself a salary, or the business is doing so well, we've opened a second location, and it could be even smaller than that. Maybe success looks like you upgraded from just a plain cash register to a POS system. So it doesn't have to be just huge, wildly goals. And maybe that is maybe you throw one in there at the end to a cane.
I think that's a good point, Jonathan, because I think a lot of times people think, oh, my goal has to be here, where, my goal might be I'm launching this business while I have a full-time job. Maybe my goal is in 3 years, I want to be able to quit my job to do this full-time. Or, I had one client, and her goal in launching her business at the 3-year point, she wanted to be able to have managers in place to be able to take a 1-week vacation and not have to worry about what's going on within the business. And so that was a huge deal when she got to walk out the door for vacation.
Yeah, no, that's all good points for sure. Quick evaluation. Do the answers to each question make sense? Do all these answers make sense together? Is this one project, or do I need to reevaluate? So that kind of goes back to, as we're walking through these and you're thinking about your business idea, did I think about the right thing? Am I on the right track? Can I make this happen? And then once again, if you've got 4 to 5 ideas, how can you just focus in on one, maybe 2 for now, and just to get it off the ground, and then chase those others? So we're back into some of the financial questions. What do you need to buy before you can start? So estimated needs. So once again, did you have something, Dana?
Oh, I was just smiling because I know this is a challenge for a lot of our business owners who are getting started. So these are one-time purchases, right? These are those big pieces of equipment, those kind of things that, if you have this information when you walk through our door, or as you're working with a bookkeeper and accountant to put together your financial projections, you really need a thorough list of what you need to get started, but also how much each one of those pieces of equipment costs. And especially today, if you got that information 2 years ago, that cost is not the same today. So this is changing regularly due to supply chain issues and some other issues that are going on. But these are those one-time big purchases, right? So, I need the food truck to start a food truck business, those kinds of things.
And to that point, Dana, a lot of manufacturers and other businesses will only give you about a week, bid or cost estimate, and it's only good for a week because the prices are changing that fast, and they don't want to be caught on the short end. So yes, you've got to keep those costs updated as you're doing this business plan, because in 6 months from now, it may be a whole different game than what you thought financially. So really keep track of that. And like Dana said, estimate those needs. And if you come to us, that's great. If you've already got those numbers, we can plug them in to a spreadsheet. We could start building that. And then, we might also think of 2 or 3 things like, hey, did you think of this? Did you think of that? And so that it's always good to have, an advisor or someone in your corner to bounce those ideas off of. So what are the cost of doing business? Ongoing expenses. And this is sometimes you kind of forget about these things as you're building your business, is just electric, internet. Maybe you have gas to your business. Maybe you have a truck for your business and you've got to buy fuel for it daily because you're a delivery service of some sort. The maintenance on them. So those are just kind of always ongoing, that you just sometimes you forget about because it's just normal bills that we all have, and maybe and you forget to plug those in sometimes. So really think about that as you're building this business plan out. What is going to be a monthly reoccurring expense? And it may not be monthly, maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's just, like I said, you have a delivery service and you've got several trucks and you've got to get oil changes every quarter or so. And so you want to think about those types of expenses. How does your business make money? So income streams, like we talked about earlier, we really like to get clients to, when they come in, to really focus in on, okay, this is your main income stream, and this is how this business is going to thrive. But as you're building widget A, did you realize you had an offshoot of this that some other product that you could have sold as well, instead of maybe throwing it in the trash, or we donate that, or whatever it might be. So that's how you think of those other income streams. Or maybe you manufacture something, and if you were to add one more machine or something to your process, well, now we can manufacture this, and we didn't really have to change our assembly line much. We just added it, and it just does it. So those are types of things when you think of income streams, and this is the same with a boutique. Maybe you add a coffee shop, maybe a restaurant, you're adding alcohol sales or something of that nature. So what are those other streams that you can add to your business? So,
and we have, oh, sorry, I was just
okay.
going to say, we have some really diverse businesses that are on with us today. So I think, some of you are going to see some of those offshoot diversification opportunities for your revenue streams. We've got some folks that are in very detailed industries, and yet they're diverse enough that they're going to have some consulting opportunities. They're going to have some separate contracting opportunities, some things like that I think are going to open up to them. Whereas maybe they're seeing the main thing, the food truck, the delivering of products, the construction, as obviously that's their mainstream of revenue, but they may have the opportunity to be a consultant or a speaker or even a mentor, a paid mentor for others in the industry. So we like you to keep your eyes open for those diversification opportunities as well.
Yeah, and I haven't got to see chat since I started talking, but I remember seeing the person that responded with construction. Yeah, there's so many avenues. Maybe construction, you're just residential, but you want to break into commercial next, or maybe oil and gas. So those are other different revenue streams that you can start getting into because you already have the equipment and the manpower. You just got to shift your thinking a little bit. So those definitely stuff to think about. So next steps, draft of the business plan, start your projections, get your credit report, and work with an advisor. So one thing we always say too is know your credit. If you don't know it today, there's options out there to check it. I think twice a year for free. Go out and do it. Go check it, because you might have something out there that's on your credit report that you've never seen before, and it's been there for a year or two. You've just never checked it, and that you need to have it removed. And that's just easy as typing in saying I don't know what this is, and working with them to have whatever could be pulling your credit down. But yeah, definitely check your credit every year if you're not going to a bank and having that done because you're purchasing something. But stay on top of that, because that is something you really need to know, especially when you walk through our doors, because there are thresholds for credit when it comes to banks, and also even with if you were to go an SBA lending route. So those are things we need to know to see which way we need to take you and your business to see about getting you the money to start your business.
And I think, I just want to point out that we do offer some workshops that have to do with understanding credit and preparing for lending. But each one of us as individual advisors can help you if you don't understand credit, or you have concerns about something on your specific, credit. We're not credit advisors. We do have some resource lists for credit advisors, but we can help you kind of at least identify, what those opportunities are, I think. But understanding your credit report, Jonathan, you're so very right. That is essential to kind of understanding your overall financial health. And understand the other part of this that I want you to know. Sometimes when we say, well, you need your draft of your business plan, people, that can cause some anxiety as well. And as Jonathan mentioned at the start, if you answer every one of these questions, you have your outline for your business plan. We can help you come in and put in some industry research and some additional information, and then we can ask you some follow-up questions to go ahead and get more detail. But if you answer these questions, you have the bulk of the outline completed, which is great.
Yep, for sure. But once again, here is Dana and I's contact information. Feel free to jot that down. If you didn't put in chat that you want an advisor, feel free to reach out to us and also an email, and we can get with you. If you have any more questions, please put it in chat. I think Cindy is also going to launch a poll here at the end. If you don't mind completing that poll, and we'll still be on here to answer any questions during this and after it until we're out of time.
So Jonathan, we do have a question. While you guys are answering that that poll, we appreciate that very much. Chris is asking, how do we find the cost of the utilities for a retail place for the business plan? So it depends, Chris. I think if you are working with a real estate agent or working with the building owner about possibly renting or buying the property, you usually can find out what the utilities run for the space. If you don't, or you're like, well, I'm really not sure, then sometimes you can get some estimates either from other local business owners, sometimes from the Chamber of Commerce can provide a little bit of additional information, or from the utility companies themselves. Sometimes they can give you that information. So I think that kind of gives you some options. But many times, you know, we work with folks that are working with the actual building owner, and they usually have that information available for you. So I love this comment, Darren. Thank you so much. So Darren's just letting us know, reminding us that you can attend this more than once, and has attended it several times and kind of learned something a little bit different take on things each time. So if you're in the phase of starting your business, you're welcome to come back and join us for this workshop, as well as our Business Smart workshop, just to kind of go over these things again. So I know several of you have said you would like an advisor, so we'll be happy to match those up. So Deborah's asking, does having an advisor help with WBE certification? So we do help with a number of certifications, and we partner with like the Women's Business Center and some others for specific certifications, but we can help walk you through that. We do help with government contracting as well. And so a lot of times people ask us about women-owned business or minority-owned business certifications. And those are extremely useful if you're going to be looking at government contracting. So yes, we would love to help you with that. So other questions? I know some of you are private messaging me. I've got those as well, and we'll be reaching out. Jonathan or I, or maybe both of us, will be following up with an email so that you get all of the slides as well as some additional information that you might find helpful in starting your business. So we look forward to hearing back from you. If you have specific feedback on what you thought this workshop was, or something that you would have liked to have learned that you didn't get to learn today, if you'll let us know that either in the chat or in the email, we'd love to know that and kind of have that feedback. We're always looking to improve. In addition, if you have specific questions for your business that maybe you don't want to ask in a group setting, responding to our emails will allow us to answer those questions. Or if you decide you want to work with an advisor, we're happy to do that as well. Okay, so what do we ask when speaking with commercial space realtors? So it kind of depends. Jonathan, do you want to jump in here? Because I know you have some experience with this.
What do we ask when speaking with commercial space realtors? So I'm trying, I guess, you know, I'm thinking, yeah, I have the experience. It's like, what would I ask? So you really want to know, like someone brought up, what are the utilities? When you're looking at purchasing or renting, what's the roof look like? You know, those are you responsible for those repairs? Are you responsible for build out? Some commercial space places will pay for some of that build out up front. I'm trying to think what else would be some issues that you'd really want to look at. You know, what tenant improvements available? Oh, that's another question. But yeah, I mean, we can definitely walk through that on the space realtors. But you definitely want to make sure that building's sound before you make an investment in it, for sure.
And I would add, you may want to ask about what is that? Are you purchasing the building? Are you looking at a long-term lease? Are you looking at an owner finance situation? Each one of those situations is a little bit different, and what you're allowed to do with the space. So I think that's important. Understanding exactly what you own if you're going to purchase the space, right? So sometimes we make assumptions when we look at commercial buildings that the parking lot's included. whereas the parking lot may actually be owned by someone else. So making sure that we understand specifically what it comes with the property, what is owned.
And
Knowing a
also
little bit of the history too of the building is
Yep.
helpful.
Sorry, Dana. And also, if you're looking at a restaurant or a bar, knowing what your setbacks are, but to churches or schools, because you don't want to purchase a building and then realize that there's zoning laws that are keeping you from doing what you wanted to do.
Absolutely.
So definitely check into that. We had another question. What tenant improvements available is there? Triple net? I guess I don't know what triple net is.
Yeah, so Deborah, that's a pretty involved answer. I'll be honest with you. I've dealt with triple net and tenant improvement situations. So if you're okay with that, I would like to just kind of circle back with you one-on-one on that, because that's pretty specific, and I'm not sure it's gonna be something that everybody is interested in.
She said
Deborah was saying that she was telling
yeah. Yeah, thank you, Deborah.
So the group got kind of quiet. I know, once again, I know some of you are direct messaging me, and I've got all of that down, and I'll be following up with you. So you guys, most of all, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. Thank you for investing time in building a solid foundation for your business. I know that sometimes we get really excited about starting a business and we jump in with both feet without doing the background work. And we watch businesses all the time, and you probably have them in your areas as well. And they may pop up and be there for 3 to 6 months, and then they close down. And many times that's due to not understanding what goes into having a business and managing and running the business day to day. And so doing this type of work and committing this type of time to starting your business is so valuable. Just for your own personal education, even if you think you're 2 years from starting a business, starting to build your personal education about business ownership is important. So thank you for investing the time today. This concludes our workshop today. If you have additional questions, though, feel free. We'll stay on for just a few minutes to take any of those. As well, with that follow-up email, feel free to email us with any specific questions. So if you're not going for business lending, it sort of depends on the type of business. Obviously, you won't need that information if you have self-financing available or an investment financing available to you. But if you're setting up vendor accounts, your credit will still come into play. So you want to be aware of that. If it's going to be something where all of your stuff is upfront, right? You're paying when you order, then it's not really a huge issue, and it gives you an opportunity to build up credit. So I think hopefully that answered your question. Crowdfunding. Oh, that can be really fun. We've worked with some businesses, some really cool businesses that have launched due to crowdfunding. It's a challenging way to fund a business, and certain types of businesses have the ability to do that maybe better than others. But it's a little bit time consuming, and it's a little bit challenging, but there's some really, really fun opportunities for businesses that use crowdfunding for their startup. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, this is Philip Dunn, Program Manager with USBC. I want to thank you all for attending this very special webinar presented by the Oklahoma SBDC. If you have any additional questions that you would like to ask or that you want to have answered, please send an email to programs@usblackchambers.org. And with that, I want to wish you all a happy Friday, and I hope that you all have a safe and happy and relaxing weekend. Thank you all and take care.